Hey, Brandon Cornay, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
So good.
Where are you right now?
I'm at my apartment in Harlem, in Manhattan.
Cool. Very, very cool. So let's just jump on in. I'm so excited that you are going to be with us for our chat today. We've given everyone a little bit of information about your illustrious musical theater career, but it's always great hearing some anecdotes from the person themselves. So I can't believe I'm about to ask you this question because a little tidbit of information is that Ryan and I grew up together. We've known each other since childhood, like elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, way, way back. So I can't believe I'm going to ask you, but can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up and where you came from?
Yes, I can. I grew up in Walled Lake, Michigan. Ever heard of it?
Yeah.
No one else has. It's a small town just outside of Detroit, and went to a dance studio called Dance Dynamics. And I started there when I was 6, and I trained there my entire school career, and moved to New York City when I was 18.
And something that's really interesting about us and other people that we grew up with is that we, started at the same small dance studio, suburban, very, middle class, working family type environment. And then we both, now live in New York, and our paths are completely different. Like, I've really lived in like the contemporary modern world, and you've lived in the musical theater world. And I always find that so interesting that you can have those forks in the road coming from the same early childhood training.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what we did as children in terms of our training? Because I think that's so interesting as like a bedrock for both of us.
Yeah. So we were very lucky to have a lot of boys at our dance studio.
Right.
And I started when I was 6 in jazz and tap classes with a bunch of different boys, which was super cool because I was able to go to school and know that there were other boys like me that wanted to do what I was doing, which was super helpful. So we started with jazz, tap, and then got a little more serious around 10 or 11, and started to take a lot of ballet. So by then, we were pretty well-rounded in terms of what we were offered and what we were taking, and we went to the competitions, the conventions. We went to like the big, well-rounded ones, but then we also did Youth America Grand Prix to sort of get the ballet fix and to get exposed to that world. So we were really lucky to have exposure to a lot of different pockets of the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it became clear around 15, 16 what pocket we wanted to focus on.
Mm-hmm. And you had an interesting sort of trajectory where you thought you were going to do one thing, and something happened and it changed for you. What was that?
Yeah, so I got really serious about ballet when I was probably 13, 14, and I started to really enjoy it, and I started to think, this is something that makes me different from the community that I'm in right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I started to really love, the discipline, the structure, the beauty of it, the challenge of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I decided I wanted to do. So I started to think about different dance companies, started to do my research about summer programs and all that stuff. And
well, I was going to say, had you done, I can't remember, I know you did the Juilliard intensives, but what were your summers like? Because we had such a eclectic experience in Michigan, but we all went away and did things over the summers. And
mm-hmm.
Did that maybe guide you a little bit?
Absolutely, yeah. The Juilliard summer program for me was mind-blowing, eye-opening, to the concert dance world, to the craft of concert dance.
Right.
Also, Youth America Grand Prix Nationals was amazing to see all those dancers from around the world,
right.
And different companies that were there scouting and the schools that were there scouting, and I would get attention from different schools, and then I would look into those schools, and then it would just grow and grow and grow all the research.
They provide so many opportunities. It's really incredible.
Totally, but I did a lot of that too. I did. Sorry to hear that beeping. That's my coffee. It's done.
You can go get a glass if you'd like, a cup.
No, I'm fine. I was hungry. I'm not thirsty. I was hungry doing research about those different schools and stuff. Anyway, so my senior year, I went to a ballet competition. I don't even know if it exists anymore, but it was called American Ballet Competition. It was in Miami, and I left with a contract to a studio company of a ballet company in Texas, and I was so excited because I was like, boom, that's it. I'm good. This was in maybe February, and then summer came around. I had finished my schooling. We had finished the season. We had a recital at the dance studio, and I started to go to New York. My sister lived there, luckily, because I couldn't afford it otherwise. And I was told...
She had the coolest apartment.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
It was cool to have a sister living here.
I know, until now we're living here, but I remember going to Brenda's apartment when we were younger and being like, wow, this is incredible.
It's in Woodside.
Yeah, totally. The 7 train, look out.
Yeah. The express stop.
We're by LaGuardia.
Yeah.
It's a 2-minute cab from the airport.
Yeah. So someone in the industry told me about an open call for the revival of West Side Story that happened in 2009. Mm-hmm. And I thought, why not? I was still sort of in limbo with contracts with the dance company, and I was wanting to experience everything, experience as much as I could. That's why I was in New York, to take class, to go to audition, to figure out what that world was going to be. Right. And I went to an open call. There were hundreds and hundreds of dancers there. Mm-hmm. Terrifying. I had my little Colony Records used to be this record store that you could go buy single folder of sheet music. Yeah. And he had a song to sing in case I got asked to sing. So I went in and I got the only song that I knew, which was 16 Going on 17 from The Sound of Music, because I'd seen that movie. Yeah. I know the words. So I brought my headshot that we took at my dance studio owner's husband's backyard.
Those. Totally.
And I went to my first Broadway audition.
And how old were you? You were still in high school. 17.
Yeah. I just finished high school, I think. It was the May of my senior year. And I went to an open call, and long story short, 5 callbacks later, I booked it. I played the role of Baby John in a revival from open to close for 2 years. So it was the day before I had to let the dance company know if I was going to take that contract. So it was super meant to be, super written in the stars, followed the universe's guidance, and did it.
That's incredible. And then, just being 17 and showing up at a Broadway audition and then booking it, and then sort of having that fork in the road of your college was Broadway. You seem to have grown up there a little bit. And
yeah, it was an interesting fork because, like I said, the last 4 years of my training, I wanted to be a ballet dancer, right, a concert dancer, and then I had that opportunity to sort of dip my toes in that side of the world, and then all of a sudden I was given this opportunity to be in a Broadway musical, right, which was something that I obviously respected and loved and enjoyed, but it was just something that I saw myself doing at least right out of high school. Right. But the decision was so easy for some reason.
Well, so yeah, and it's such a dance show. West Side Story is so iconic, and a male dance-driven show.
It was the perfect introduction because it is Jerome Robbins choreography, which is so technical, so storytelling, so ballet-based. So it's super cool to be able to do what I did best, but then also be a fish out of water for so much of the other things. Singing, acting, speaking on stage, putting a microphone on.
When you're not, in a rehearsal or in a creative process with a choreographer, that you do you read more? Do you listen to music? Do you feel like you're gaining inspiration from places, or is it always moving to the next source of what you're going to be working on?
No, I need those small time frames in between to read, to allow my brain to be creative, other places, to really listen to music. A lot of times when I'm in rehearsal, I put my headphones in and I'm listening to the music that we learned the day before, going over my vocal parts. So it's nice to sit on the train and just listen to my new Spotify playlist.
Totally. So it's like when you're in a project, you're fully, wholeheartedly invested in it. That's something I know about you, and I think something that's super important to share is that the work that goes into, especially a Broadway show, people only see the product. They see the 8 nights a week, the clean, the polished, the number that was redone 5 times before the show opened, and it's part of your responsibility to keep track of that. Which, doing your homework is a part of it. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about some of the skills that it takes, whether it's maybe it's like auditioning and performing, like the skills that people don't necessarily think of. It's like you see the show, but like you just mentioned, memorizing your own vocal part, or like things that you need to do to prepare for an audition that you do that maybe you don't really know, that maybe you didn't know before you started West Side Story,
Yeah, there's a lot that you have to be ready for that you can't prepare for, if that makes sense. And your preparation is your training. Your preparation is trusting.
That's a really great point.
Because there are so many curveballs in this industry. Let's see, I'm trying to think of like a good example. So the revival of Carousel, it opened in 2018, I think, or 17. And we had 6 weeks of tech. For those of you who don't know, a tech process is figuring out the lighting of the show, the sound, figuring out the different staging. It's for the creatives to see it on stage before we preview. I'm sorry, we get 3 weeks of tech and then 6 weeks of previews. And then previews are a period of time where you're performing a show as normal in the evening and the matinees. And before the show, you have 5 hours of rehearsal, and you're still able to make changes until opening night. So it's not reviewed. It's sort of a process for the actors to figure out, get in the groove of it. So we had 6 weeks of tech, and we made so many changes to a specific number. It's choreographed by Justin Peck. He won a Tony for it. Brilliant choreography. We changed, and when you're that brilliant, you wanna keep fine tuning and keep fixing things. And so June is busting out all over. Famous song, famous number, has to be right. We changed it. I think we had 5 or 6 different full versions during tech.
That is crazy.
At noon on Tuesday, we would be rehearsing a brand new June is Busting Out All Over until 5:30, entirely new staging. And then at 7 o'clock, we would have a half-hour call to do our show that evening with the old number that we did last week because we weren't ready to put the new number in because we didn't have the lighting cues.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know it was like that spliced up. I thought it was like, you work on a show, try it that night.
Yeah.
Wow.
So stuff like that you have to be ready for. You have to be a smart dancer, smart performer. You have to be aware of what's around you. Yeah.
And there's and I think there's this like common denominator of like being responsible for yourself. It's like your job is I think I didn't really learn this until I started doing associate choreographer work, that like, as a performer, it's so important. You've worked so hard to get to this position or this job or whatever you're doing, whether it's, performing, whether it's not performing, you get to this pinnacle moment, but then it's like, you're actually just one piece of this larger puzzle.
Yeah, it's like when you're at music rehearsal, the music director plunks out a 10 or 2 line, and it's your job to record it. And if you don't have the ear for that and don't know it right away, you go home, you do your homework, you come back. They're not going to go over it again.
Right.
And if you're the only person on 10 or 2, you have to hold it, So you have to go home and do your homework. You have to listen to it a bunch of times. You have to figure it out.
It's incredible. Broadway musical theater performers all across musical theater are just so incredible at their speed and their integrity to the work. It's just like, you can go see a Broadway show and it can be bad, but like every single person involved with a show is always so committed to it. It's what I love so much about musical theater. It's so incredible. So something that I also want to talk about is that in terms of longevity and career and you specifically, something that people often say to me, that when they don't know we know each other so well, like if we're like at a birthday party and I'm like, oh yeah, I know Ryan or whatever, or something like that. And the most common thing people say to me is that, oh, he's so nice.
Oh.
Like, Ryan is like so nice. He's so sweet. He's so talented, but he's so nice. And I don't know. I think totally. But like, I think that is a huge part of the process. And not that you're like, pretending to be nice. You actually are a nice person, but it's like you are in these small units of companies that change, and you're going to work with people in this show and that show. And can you sort of talk about like the community and the sort of like connection of it all a little bit?
Yeah, everyone. My first 10 minutes in the room at rehearsal at West Side Story, 18 years old, terrified, walked in, and Manny Herrera, who played Pepe and in the show, came up to me and he was like, "Hey, you went to Lindsay Janice's studio?" And I was like, "Yes!" And I all of a sudden I was like, "Okay, so I have a 1 degree of separation from someone that knows me well, and that I know well. I feel instantly comfortable." Another example that really kind of blew my mind, my second Broadway show was Billy Elliot, and I was in the final callback, and I found out later that the dance supervisor, whose name is Greg Graham, was under the table texting one of my idols who I just worked with, Curtis Holbrook, and because they were buddies from Hairspray, or Fosse, I don't remember, but Greg literally texted Curtis and was like, "Hey, I think we're gonna go with this Ryan kid. Do we like him? Do we get your thumbs up? Do we get your approval?" And Curtis said, "Yes, hire him." And that could have easily, if I was a butthead in West Side Story, he could have easily have taken away my shot at a Broadway show because I was a butthead. He doesn't want to upset Greg to work with a butthead, you know?
Yeah. It's incredible. And I can speak about this like really specifically with you is like the world feels so large, the dance world feels so large, but it's so small. If you think of like of me and you, and then like we can walk down, the street and run into like Casey Quinn, who didn't go to our dance studio, but is like wicked on Broadway's like girl, or Lindsay Janice, or all these people. And it's like, we knew them from childhood and they weren't even really in our orbit, but like the world and the community of it continues to grow.
And it doesn't start after you graduate, it starts when you're kids. Because like I met so many people who I'm working with now as a kid. Some of my best friends are still from the dance convention days and studio days. And so it starts early. It starts then.
Totally. And I think there's this idea of like creating a sense of community within your own dance studio. And that's something that we try to do at Dance Device Lab is like, it's so intimidating working with different teachers. And there's that nervous barrier as students, someone's coming in and you're like, who is this person? But like, we really try to like create a sense of community within how long we're at your studio. That's super unique because you want everyone to love dance, whether they're going to do it professionally or not. You want people to continue like going to see shows and supporting it. And I don't know, it's a big thing. I like want people to keep it in their life. And I think like building that young is so important.
Totally.
And I know we talked earlier about you working for like dance conventions and stuff. And I think it's interesting because we are fully supportive of conventions and competitions. We think there's a huge place in them, but we, do in-studio events. And I wonder like if you could speak a little bit to the benefit of working with so many, guest teachers or someone who comes in or working at a convention. Because I know, it's crazy. Like we used to do conventions and I remember, Andy Blankenbuehler was a huge influence back then. And it's like we just says like, I can run into him on the street now and he's like, "Hey, how's it going?" Like I haven't seen him in so long, but that influence is still prevalent and real. And how was that for you working with so many people so young?
Andy's a good example. He is on faculty with New York City Dance Alliance, which is a convention that we used to go to growing up, which was awesome and super popular. So there are hundreds of kids there, and which taught you a different skill to get in the front and to get noticed. But Andy also used to come to our dance studio often since we were 11 or 12,
right.
And he would give us just like really more intimate attention. We're in our home studio. Yeah, we are comfortable immediately because we're not walking into a convention center with hundreds of other kids and teachers. Right. We're in our home dance studio. Right. We have our teachers. We have our peers to support us. Mm-hmm. And we're getting this attention from Andy Blankenbuehler.
Totally.
Like, it's gold. What he says is gold. And we had an opportunity to get that in a room full of 15 other dancers.
Yeah, no, it was incredible.
And that's what's cool about Dance Device Lab is that, like the studios that I've gone to with DDL, it's been such a cool environment, knowing the kids' names and their habits quickly, and that helps with information that you can give them and notes and like if I'm casting something in 10 years, I'm like, oh my gosh, this girl was perfect at this studio, and oh my God, I remember her from that because there were only 10 kids in a room and not 1,000, you know?
It's funny, you hear these stories, but they're actually so real. It's like that happens. The power of community and the power of connection is so important. And no, it's so interesting.
Yeah, I've worked with Andy a lot in my career, and I'm sure it's because of the seeds that were planted when I was 12 years old.
Totally. It's wild. It's so cool, though. That is a super great example.
Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts that you would like to share? Like, if you could, maybe something you would say to, like, younger Ryan Steele, or maybe something that you learned that you wish you, in your professional life, that you wish you had known when you were younger, anything like that?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, what did you say?
I said this is a pop quiz.
Okay, should have had that coffee.
Yeah.
I think I would tell younger Ryan to make mistakes and be okay with it. And mistakes are something that I am okay doing now, and I'm so good at learning from them, and that's something that I've always had. Mm-hmm. But I wish that I learned quicker to not care what people thought of my mistakes. That's fear, does that make sense? Mistakes are totally okay to make. I think mistakes come with the greatest lessons. I wish I wouldn't have been scared of what people thought of me making those mistakes, so I could have made them more.
Totally.
You know?
Because that's how you grow. If you don't like try it, then you don't know your limits or your capacity or anything.
Totally, and I'm still sort of making up a lot of lost time from that. So I think I would go back in time and tweak that a little bit with younger Ryan.
I love that. That's really great advice. Well, thank you so much for for doing this. It's so special. I often say it's so special that we get to, have this like dual life together and stuff, and here you are. And so thank you for sharing. I think we've learned a lot about sort of the ins and outs of musical theater and the power of community and the power of expanding and being expanding your palette and being as versatile as possible. So thank you for those insights.
Thank you for having me. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of DDL and what it does. Bring DDL to your dance studio.
Thanks, Ryan. All right. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Okay,
bye.
Bye.